Life often feels like a constant chase, chasing security, chasing recognition, chasing love, and even chasing control over the things we cannot control. We wake up every day believing that if we just hold on a little tighter, if we plan a little harder, if we push ourselves a little further, we might finally find the peace we're searching for. Yet the truth is, the tighter we cling, the heavier our lives feel. Buddhist wisdom has always reminded us of a timeless truth. Peace is not found in clinging, but in letting go. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with stones. Each stone represents your fears, your resentments, your endless comparisons, your attachment to material things. The weight may not feel unbearable at first, but as the years pass, it bends your back, slows your steps, and makes life a constant struggle. The only way to walk freely is to set those stones down. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean becoming careless or cold. Letting go is an act of courage. It is a decision to release what no longer serves your soul so you can create space for something lighter, something truer, something deeply alive. When you let go, you are not losing, you are gaining room for clarity, kindness, and freedom. But the question remains, what exactly should we let go of? Not everything deserves to be released, and not every burden can be dropped at once. That is why Buddhist teachings guide us gently, step by step, to see the hidden weights we carry in our hearts. Some are obvious, like anger and resentment. Others are subtle, like the way we constantly compare ourselves to others or cling to an outcome that may never arrive. This journey is about recognizing those hidden burdens. It is about understanding how they quietly drain our energy and keep us from the peace we long for. And more importantly, it is about discovering the strength within us to release them. If you have ever felt the exhaustion of holding on too tightly, whether to control, to possessions, to grudges, or even to an image of who you think you should be, then you already know how heavy it feels. Imagine, instead, what it would feel like to exhale, to loosen your grip, to finally live with open hands. The wisdom we are about to explore does not belong to the past alone. It belongs to anyone who dares to live with more freedom today. And as you listen, you may find that the act of letting go is not just about finding peace. It is about finding yourself. We live in a world that praises control. Control over our schedule, control over our career, control over our health, even control over other people's choices. We plan, we predict, we strategize as if the universe must bend to our will. And yet, deep down, we all know the truth. Life has its own rhythm, one that doesn't always move in harmony with our desires. Think about the last time something didn't go your way. Maybe it was a conversation that slipped into silence when you wanted connection. Maybe it was a dream job that slipped through your fingers, or a relationship that ended no matter how tightly you held on. In those moments, frustration takes over because control feels like the only way to protect ourselves from disappointment. But in chasing control, we often discover more chaos, not less. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that control is, at its core, an illusion. You can plant the seed, but you cannot control the rain. You can pour your heart into a relationship, but you cannot control how another person loves. You can take care of your health, but you cannot control the passing of time. The river of life moves with or without your permission. The more you try to dam it up, the more it resists. So what happens when we loosen our grip? Letting go of control doesn't mean drifting through life without direction. It means acting with intention, but without the demand that everything turn out exactly the way you imagined. It is the difference between holding life with a fist and holding it with an open palm. One creates tension, the other creates flow. Picture a leaf resting on a stream. It doesn't fight the current, yet it moves exactly where it needs to go. That is what happens when we surrender control. We align ourselves with the natural rhythm of life. Suddenly, obstacles feel less like punishments and more like teachers. Disappointments shift into redirections. And instead of fearing uncertainty, we begin to see it as a space where new possibilities are born. When we give up the obsession with control, we reclaim something far greater: trust. Trust in ourselves to handle whatever arises. Trust in life's ability to unfold as it should. Trust that even in the face of uncertainty, there is wisdom waiting to be discovered. Letting go of control is not weakness, it is strength. Because only the strongest hearts can release the need to dominate and instead embrace the beauty of surrender. And in that surrender, peace quietly enters. The human heart has a quiet ache that rarely fades, the ache of comparison. From the moment we are young, we are taught to measure ourselves against others. Who runs faster, who looks prettier, who scores higher, who earns more. It becomes so natural that we forget comparison is not the truth. It's a prison we build with our own thoughts. Think of how often your peace is stolen by this habit. You scroll through a screen and suddenly your life feels smaller. A friend's success makes your own achievements feel less valuable. Even simple joys, a meal, a walk, a laugh, lose their sweetness when you believe someone else is living better. This is the silent poison of comparison. It blinds you to the blessings already in your hands. Buddhist wisdom teaches us that no two lives can ever be the same. Just as no two flowers bloom in identical ways, no two souls walk the same path. A rose does not envy the lotus. A lotus does not wish to be a sunflower. Each unfolds in its own time, in its own place, under its own light. The moment we compare, we abandon our own garden and stare longingly at another's. The truth is, comparison is endless. If you are richer, someone else is happier. If you are wiser, someone else is kinder. There will always be another scale, another race, another shadow to chase. But the moment you let go of comparison, life stops being a competition and starts being a journey. You are no longer running against others, you are walking with yourself. And when you walk with yourself, you begin to notice things you once overlooked. The strength you have built through struggle, the kindness you've shown in silence, the resilience that has carried you through pain. These are treasures no one else can measure because they belong uniquely to you. Letting go of comparison is not about ignoring others. It is about seeing them without losing yourself. It is about celebrating their light without dimming your own. When you stop comparing, you stop asking, "Am I enough?" and start realizing, "I have always been enough." Peace begins where comparison ends. And when that burden finally falls away, you'll see your life not as less than anyone else's, but as perfectly your own. Resentment is like carrying a burning coal in your hand, hoping it will scorch the one who hurt you. Yet all the while, it is your skin that blisters. We often hold on to old wounds, betrayals, and disappointments as if clinging to them gives us power. But in truth, resentment steals more from us than the original pain ever did. Think of how heavy it feels when someone's name crosses your mind and your chest tightens. It's as if the past keeps pulling you backward, refusing to release its grip. That weight does not belong to you anymore. The moment has already passed. The words have already been spoken. The betrayal has already occurred. But when you carry resentment, you live that pain again and again, never allowing the wound to close. Buddha once taught that anger is like holding a torch. Its fire consumes not the enemy, but the one who clings to it. Resentment works the same way. It keeps you locked in yesterday, unable to step fully into today. Forgiveness, then, is not about excusing the wrong or forgetting the wound. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the chains that bind your heart. Let me share a story. There was once an old monk who had been wronged by his own brother. For years, he carried bitterness, thinking that by holding on to anger, he was somehow honoring his pain. But one evening, as he meditated, he saw his life like a river. Every rock of resentment he held onto kept the water from flowing. Only when he chose to lift the stones and let them sink away did the current move freely again. That night, he whispered a prayer of release. He did not excuse his brother, but he freed his heart. From that moment, peace returned. Resentment pretends to give us control. It whispers, "As long as you stay angry, you will never be hurt again." But the truth is, resentment is not a shield, it is a cage. Only when you let it go do you step out into the open air, where joy and freedom can breathe again. Think of your life like a garden. Resentment is the weed that grows quietly, stealing the nourishment meant for flowers. Forgiveness is the act of pulling that weed, not for the sake of the weed, but for the sake of the blossoms you wish to see. And so I ask you, what coal are you holding? Whose name still weighs heavy on your heart? What pain are you replaying over and over, long after the moment has passed? Release it, not for them, but for yourself. Because peace will not come from clinging tighter to your wound. Peace will only come when you set it free. There's a quiet enemy that doesn't shout, doesn't fight, but whispers inside our own mind. It's the voice that tells you you're not good enough, the one that replays your mistakes like a broken record, the one that convinces you that somehow you're less than others. This enemy is self-judgment. We live in a world that often measures worth by achievements, appearances, or how well we fit into someone else's standards. And in that race, we become our own harshest critics. But here's the truth. Nothing wounds the heart more deeply than the words we speak to ourselves. Buddhism teaches that the mind is like a garden. If we constantly plant seeds of criticism, doubt, and shame, those seeds will grow into thorns that wound us daily. But if we plant seeds of compassion, acceptance, and patience, the mind blooms with peace. Letting go of self-judgment is not about ignoring our flaws. It's about recognizing them without hatred. It's about saying, yes, I made a mistake. Yes, I am imperfect. And yet I am worthy of love, of growth, of peace. Think of how you speak to a close friend when they are struggling. You don't tell them they are worthless or broken. You encourage them, remind them of their strength, and guide them gently forward. So why should your own heart deserve anything less? What if you began speaking to yourself with that same kindness? When we release the heavy burden of self-judgment, something powerful happens. We stop living in the shadow of our mistakes and start stepping into the light of possibility. Every stumble becomes a lesson, every scar becomes proof of resilience, every imperfection becomes a reminder of our humanity. And in that acceptance, we discover freedom. The freedom to grow without fear, to live without the weight of shame, to walk our path with peace. So today, let go of the harsh voice within. Allow compassion to be your inner guide, because when you stop judging yourself, you create space for healing, growth, and joy to flow naturally through your life. And as the heart softens toward itself, it begins to soften toward the world as well, leading us gently into our next step on this journey. Fear has a way of creeping into every corner of life. It whispers before we take a chance, it lingers when we try to love, and it shouts when we step into the unknown. It tells us, don't risk it, don't try, don't move forward, stay where it's safe. But what fear calls safe is often nothing more than a cage. A cage built not from reality, but from imagined outcomes, from stories our mind writes before life has even begun to unfold. Fear keeps us small, keeps us silent, keeps us living half a life instead of a whole one. Buddhist wisdom teaches that fear is not a permanent enemy. It's simply a shadow born from attachment and ignorance. We fear losing what we love. We fear not getting what we want. We fear the unknown because we cling to certainty. But when we begin to release that tight grip, fear loses its power. Think of a river. If you try to hold the water, it slips through your hands, and the harder you clutch, the more you lose. Life is the same. The more we resist uncertainty, the more fearful we become. But when we learn to let the river flow, to trust that it knows its own course, suddenly the fear of drowning transforms into the joy of floating. Every great act of courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to walk forward anyway. The Buddha himself faced fear under the Bodhi tree, temptations, doubts, illusions. Yet he sat still, breathing deeply, seeing fear for what it was, a fleeting cloud, not the sky itself. When we stop identifying with fear, it loses its grip. We begin to see fear not as a wall, but as a doorway, an invitation to growth. And with each step beyond fear, the heart expands, the spirit strengthens, and the world opens wider than we ever imagined. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if fear were not holding the pen? What dreams would you pursue? What love would you embrace? What path would you walk? Letting go of fear is not about erasing it. It's about refusing to let it define you. And as courage quietly replaces fear, we find ourselves ready to release yet another weight we carry, one that often hides beneath the surface, shaping our choices and binding our hearts. From the time we are young, the world teaches us that happiness is something we can buy, something we can own, something we can display. We chase after bigger houses, shinier cars, new clothes, and endless possessions, believing that if we just have a little more, then we'll finally feel complete. But here's the truth. Material things can bring comfort, yes, but they cannot bring lasting peace. Because the moment we attach our sense of worth or joy to what we own, we become prisoners of constant desire. There will always be something newer, something better, something we don't yet have. And in that endless chase, true happiness slips further away. Buddhism reminds us of a simple but profound truth: everything material is impermanent. The clothes fade, the car rusts, the gadgets break, the money flows in and out like the tide. If we tie our hearts to these fleeting things, then our happiness will rise and fall with them, never steady, never free. Think of the story of the Buddha himself. Born into a palace filled with wealth and luxury, he had everything the world could offer. Yet, surrounded by gold, he felt the emptiness of it all. It wasn't until he let go of his attachment to riches that he discovered a treasure no money could buy: inner peace. This doesn't mean we must reject all material things or live with nothing. It means learning to use them without clinging to them, enjoying what we have, but not making it the foundation of our happiness. Because real wealth is not measured by what fills your house, but by what fills your heart. Imagine carrying a heavy bag everywhere you go, stuffed with things you believe you cannot live without. Over time, the weight becomes unbearable. Letting go of attachment is like setting that bag down. Suddenly, you feel light, free, unburdened. And in that space, gratitude and joy naturally arise. When we loosen our grip on material things, life feels less like a race and more like a gift. We begin to see abundance not in what we buy, but in the sunrise, in laughter with a friend, in the quiet moments of stillness that money can never purchase. So release the illusion that happiness comes from things. Learn to hold the world with open hands. Because when the hands are open, the heart is free. And that freedom leads us naturally into the next lesson waiting on our path. There is a silent mask we all wear. The image of who we think we are, the identity we defend, the voice that insists, "This is me, this is mine, I must be right." This mask is the ego. The ego thrives on separation. It whispers, "I am different, I am better, I am less, I must prove myself, I must protect myself." And while it gives us a sense of identity, it also builds invisible walls between us and the world. Walls that keep us comparing, competing, defending, and suffering. Buddhism teaches that the ego is not the true self. It's a collection of stories, our name, our roles, our possessions, our achievements, all stitched together into something we cling to as me. But like everything else, these stories change. And when we cling too tightly to them, every change feels like a threat, every challenge feels personal, every loss feels like the end of us. Letting go of ego is not about erasing yourself. It's about seeing clearly that you are more than the roles you play, more than the mask you wear. When the Buddha reached enlightenment, he realized there was no fixed self to defend. There was only the vast, flowing reality of life, interconnected and ever-changing. Think of a wave in the ocean. The wave may rise high and declare, "I am separate, I am important, I must not disappear." But in truth, the wave has always been the ocean. When it falls back, nothing is lost. It simply returns to what it always was. So it is with us. Behind the ego's story, we are part of something infinite, something that doesn't need defending. When you let go of ego, arguments lose their fire because there's nothing to prove. Jealousy fades because there's nothing to compare. Loneliness softens because you see yourself reflected in everyone and everything around you. Peace begins to blossom because the walls of separation crumble. And in that space, a deeper love emerges, not the love of possession or pride, but the love that flows naturally when you realize we are all connected. This love does not need to win, does not need to control, does not need to be right. It simply shines. So take off the mask. Release the weight of I, me, mine. Step into the truth that you are not a separate self, but a part of something vast and boundless. And when the ego dissolves, What remains is freedom, the kind that carries us gracefully into the wisdom waiting just ahead. So much of our suffering does not come from the effort we make. It comes from the way we cling to what we expect that effort to bring. We study hard and demand success. We love deeply and expect the same love in return. We plant seeds and grow restless, wanting the harvest to come exactly when and how we planned. But life does not unfold according to our timelines or our conditions. The river flows where it will, and when we grip too tightly to a specific outcome, we set ourselves up for disappointment, frustration, even despair. Buddhist wisdom reminds us we are free to act, but we are not free to control the fruits of action. This doesn't mean giving up or living without goals. It means learning to engage fully in the present moment, to give your best effort and then release the result into the hands of life. Do the work with sincerity, then let go. Think of an archer. They can choose the bow, train the arm, steady the breath, and aim with all their focus. But once the arrow leaves the string, it is no longer in their control. The wind may shift, the target may move, the outcome may surprise. The skill is in the practice, not in the guarantee. In the same way, when we release our grip on outcomes, something beautiful happens. We discover joy in the journey itself. Success no longer defines our worth, and failure no longer destroys our spirit. Every step, every attempt, every effort becomes its own reward. This shift is powerful because it frees us from the endless cycle of anxiety and disappointment. We no longer live in a constant what if or what should have been. Instead, we live in the truth of what is, finding peace in the present moment. So ask yourself, can you love without demanding a return? Can you give without expecting recognition? Can you pursue your dreams without letting their outcome chain your happiness? Letting go of attachment to outcomes is not passivity. It is freedom. Freedom to act with courage, to love with openness, to live with peace. And as we approach the final step of this journey, we begin to see that letting go was never about losing. It was always about gaining the space to live fully, here and now. We've traveled together through many layers of letting go. Control, comparison, resentment, self-judgment, fear, material attachment, ego, the past, and even the outcomes we hold onto so tightly. And with each release, the heart has grown a little lighter, the mind a little clearer, the spirit a little freer. Letting go does not mean losing. It means choosing peace over struggle, flow over resistance, freedom over chains. It means learning to live not with a closed fist, but with an open hand, trusting that what is meant for us will come and what is not will pass. Buddhist wisdom has always pointed to this truth. The more we cling, the more we suffer. But when we release, when we soften, when we surrender, we discover a kind of happiness that does not depend on circumstances. A happiness that cannot be bought, cannot be taken away, cannot be shaken by the storms of life. Perhaps the real miracle is this. When we stop chasing after what we think life should be, we finally awaken to the beauty of life as it is. The laughter of a friend, the stillness of a morning breeze, the quiet strength of simply being here now. So as you step away from this journey, ask yourself, what are you still holding onto that no longer serves you? What weight can you set down today so that your walk may be lighter, your heart more open, your spirit more at peace? Remember, freedom is not found in holding on. It is found in letting go. And when we let go, we don't fall, we rise. If these words have touched something within you, if this journey of letting go has brought even a moment of peace to your heart, then I invite you to stay connected. Subscribe to Zen Buddhism Wisdom and continue walking this path with us. Together, we'll explore more timeless teachings, gentle reflections, and stories that remind us how to live with clarity, compassion, and freedom. Your presence here is a part of this shared journey, and every step we take together brings more light into the world. So, if this resonates with you, join us, subscribe, and let us keep walking toward wisdom, one breath, one moment, one insight at a time.